Now we are shifting back to our startup companies, this time focused on the Biolabs at NYU Incubator. Glennis, Mehra, who's the director there, will be moderating. Three of her companies, Anthony Johnson, the CEO and president of Kodikaz Therapeutics, Dori Thomas-Karyat, the CEO of Synthis, and Prakrit, Jena, co-founder and CTO of Lyme Therapeutics.
So thank you all for joining this afternoon. Wonderful New York fall day, finally. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce not only Biolabs, but some of our companies and the engine of most of the ambitions of the stakeholders in this room. Early stage life science companies, as you know, and has been discussed, actually provide the opportunity for New York to become an epicenter of drug discovery, development, and also advances in other areas of life science. And we at Biolabs actually believe that we can help accelerate that in terms of helping companies advance their work and also creating community. Biolabs at NYU Langone is part of a network of incubators. There are 11 in the US, all Biolabs, and also 6 now emerging internationally. In New York, we are focused on execution. Our model is companies get their first tranche of funding, they enter into our site, and they can, within 2 weeks of making it through our selection committee, actually start their work and start getting to their first milestones. What's amazing about our community, we've only been open since 2019 and we've already generated 60 startups. Currently we have 40. I wouldn't say generated, but we've hosted 60 startups and we currently have 40. Of the alumni that have graduated from our incubator, they've already raised $2 billion in funding. And I think just the numbers in terms of the economic impact is quite significant. As I mentioned, in New York, we focus on execution, and the way that's realized is actually through capital efficiency, through providing extensive amount of resources needed for early stage development and research. We also foster collaboration between our founders and help people streamline their workflows through training and other resources and aspects of designs of our systems and operations. Most of what we do goes undetected and is quite purposeful to actually ensure that the outcomes that are needed for success are there. And so very pleased to introduce a few examples of our founders, starting with Kodikaz, Synthis, and Lyme Therapeutics. So you know this side is senior, the senior citizens of the community. So Anthony has been with us the longest, and Lyme Therapeutics that Prakrit represents actually is one of our newer companies. So with that, Anthony, I just want each of you to take about 5 minutes and describe your work, and then we'll have a conversation of what we actually would look forward to in the New York ecosystem as things move forward and develop.
Thanks, Glennis. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I guess I'm the elder statesman here. So Kodikaz Therapeutics was founded back in late 2019. It was a technology we licensed from Emory University down in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've been, though you don't hear from the accent, well experienced working in New York City environment in biotech. I actually worked with Kelly Associates and Nancy on starting the New York Genome Center, right? So for the longest time, it had been a big issue with having space here in the city, and I think we've come a long way since then. And so I'll tell you kind of our journey and why we selected New York City to be the headquarters for our technology. So at Kodikaz, what we're doing is we've created a technology that allows us to specifically hit, in this case, cancer cells, but we'll be expanding this outside of just the oncology realm. The technology is called zip code. So it's a DNA-based way that if you can think of things almost like Google Maps, where we can actually hone in on the specific cell, and these DNA markers are able to, in addition to their specificity, efficiently deliver a variety of different therapeutic payloads. So it's a tremendous advantage. Obviously, one of the big issues in therapeutics is trying to get the right drug to the right place at the right time. And we believe our zip code technology is going to permit us to do so. Another aspect of these zip code technologies, too, is they don't elicit an immune response. So we can do repeat dosing. And so as we're trying to treat these cancer patients in the cells, we're able to almost modulate the therapy similar to the way that cancer morphs, and develops resistance to these therapies. And so we were, as we got founded back in 2019, we started doing early stage work. We have a small lab in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were the inaugural recipient of the Golden Ticket Award for Biolabs, right? So the first one funded by Boehringer Ingelheim, right? And so that was one of the reasons why we selected Biolabs to move into. Another aspect of kind of why we chose New York City is because I think there is indeed a burgeoning life science sector taking place here. Obviously, with the academic institutions, as you've heard from some of these other talks, there are just world-renowned researchers and technologists here, and we take full advantage of that, right, through partnerships with various academic groups here. Also, our first two indications on the clinical side are in the area of multiple myeloma research in the liquid tumor side, followed by pancreatic cancer, another lethal cancer that's out there. And so we have full plans of doing clinical trials here in the city with groups like Cornell, Sloan, as well as Columbia. So that's just a bit of backdrop kind of what we're doing. We are currently about 7 employees. We do a lot of work through contract research organizations, but we take full advantage of the shared equipment and facilities here at Biolabs. And it's been a great way to interact with fellow entrepreneurs, fellow life science groups that are going through some of the same issues that trouble an early stage biotech, right? Whether it be through partnering, staffing, or just trying to solve some of the issues on the funding side. And so it's been a great experience, and we're looking to expand. So we've gone through a couple of rounds of funding. We're currently going through another one as we speak, and our game plan is to be moving out of Biolabs, or I would say probably moving into larger space, right, in 2024, and we've begun that search process already. And I think, I mean, from the perspective of kind of space and what early stage biotechs need, a lot of it is flexibility. So, right, so the ability to kind of move and morph as your company grows, or sometimes needs to reduce during tough economic times is important. And then also being able to move into space, like for us, we look to expand so that we can have space at least for a 3 to 4 year period of time without having to move again. So for us, that looks like, call it that 10 to 15,000 kind of square feet of space with a mixture of lab and office space. So that's a bit on the backdrop of Kodikaz. So you'll be hearing a lot more about us in the future. This is indeed a new modality in oncology therapeutics. And so I think a corollary to what we're doing with this next generation genomic targeting platform is paralleling some of the things that you see with the antibody drug conjugates and using our zip codes as a novel way of targeting these cancer cells where current antibody targets do not exist. And so from both a manufacturing perspective, a cost perspective, and scalability, we think this platform has a large runway, and are excited to kind of move it into the future.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. So, Dori, can you tell us about your approach?
Well, thank you, everybody, for your attention today. My name is Dori Thomas-Karyat. I'm the CEO and founder of Synthis Therapeutics. A little bit about me. I am a scientist. I'm a tumor immunologist by training, and New York was always my choice. I did my postdoctoral work here at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and then I joined pharma for a bit, and I worked as a drug discovery scientist, project lead. I went back to Illinois for a bit, and then came back to the pharma space here in New Jersey and New York, and decided never to leave. And so at Synthis, what we are developing is a first-in-class immunomodulatory antibody drug conjugate for cancer and fibrotic diseases. And just to give you a little bit of context, Anthony just mentioned the ADC space. If you pay attention to oncology, you know that the ADCs are kind of having their renaissance, their moment in the sun. They've been around for a while. And you can, yay. And really, I think you can kind of see recently deals in the space have just kind of exploded. The most, I think the most dramatic one, the most powerful one, was Pfizer's purchase of Seagen, one of the original ADC companies, been around for about 25 years. That deal went down for about $43 billion, and it just sort of put ADCs front and center. On a more patient-centric note, I think this story actually is really why we do this. There was a recent ASCO meeting, which is the clinical oncology meeting, and Daiichi Sankyo is a Japanese ADC company. They came and presented their data on HER2 in heavily pretreated breast cancer patients, and they had an over 50% improvement in survival for this patient population that didn't have a lot. And the entire plenary session stood up and applauded. They had a standing ovation for this. This has never happened. Any of you who have ever attended ASCO, it's a very staid, calm. And then to have an entire plenary session to get up on their feet speaks to what ADCs are powerful, how powerful they are, and what they can actually accomplish. And really, their ability to contribute to the patients, which is why we're all here, right? This is why we do what we do. Along those lines, what Synthis has done is really kind of leverage the ADC space, and we've done it in sort of a novel, differentiated way, where we're turning our attention away from the tumor and turning our attention to the immune system. If you don't have immune function when you have cancer, you don't get clearance, and more importantly, you do not get remission, which means your cancer will come back. You have to get your immune system back in the game. And so our platform is designed to actually restore immune function in cancer patients. And so we have our lead development candidate selected. I'm really excited because we actually designed this platform internally. We didn't spin out for anywhere, so I actually designed that platform, and we have now 3 patents issued on it. And we're really, really excited about the next steps. We're raising our A. We're going on to really sort of expand the team. We joined Biolabs last year. We joined in 2021. We also won one of the golden tickets from BI, and it's been just an amazing journey, really. Glennis and the team has been so supportive, and it's really allowed us, all the incubator space, but really allowed us to set up shop from literally nothing. We had nothing. We wrote, a drug composition on a napkin, and we built from there. And New York City supported that, right? We were able to start from zero, and now we have 3 patents on the platform. We're able to demonstrate efficacy, safety, and improved therapeutic window. We have it all laid out, and I don't think I would choose anywhere else to be other than New York City. I think where we're going as a biotech community is incredible. I think everything that we have here in New York will allow the biotech community here to flourish. I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Great. So Prakrit, can you introduce Lyme?
Thank you. I'm Prakrit Jena, and I'm co-founder and CTO of Lyme Therapeutics. And Lyme, like our name LIME, is a platform biotech targeting lipid-mediated pathways. I think of Lyme as an example of an idea that started in New York and is staying in New York. I was previously a research scientist in our co-founder Dan Heller's Cancer Nanomedicine Lab at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and I worked there to develop LipidSense, our proprietary lipid sensing platform. And this was motivated by this clear understanding across many diseases that lipid buildup causes heart disease, it causes diabetes, obesity, strokes, it's causal in many kinds of cancers. But lipidomics has never been accessible the way proteomics and genomics are, that the tools just weren't there to study lipids in a high-throughput, scalable way. And that's what I worked on at Sloan Kettering to invent, the lipid sensing platform. And once it was clear that we had something valuable in our hands, we wanted to start a biotech around it. And New York was just the most obvious choice for us. Our science was based here. We had extensive collaborators here. There was no lack of really talented PhDs, master's students, undergraduates coming out. And my co-founder was at Harvard Business School at the moment. And we evaluated the 2 places. We could move to Boston. We could stay in New York. And it was just obvious that New York was a much better choice for us. And when we looked at places to spin out from, Biolabs was amazing in terms of the people there, the community, the facility. It was I don't want to say step up, but there was nothing that we were missing in terms of equipment or just capability of the science we could do. And so we started our lab about 3 months ago, and we were lucky to get a golden ticket from BMS. And with that bench, we hired our first scientist. We did a lot of really amazing work quickly. And now we've hired our second person. We're moving two benches now. Early next year, we'll move into a private lab space. And those are the kind of decisions we can make immediately without really thinking about the infrastructure, what it takes. We email Glennis. It takes us a week to science something, and then we can have a private lab space. As a company, we've been using our platform to find novel targets in cancer, and we have a lead molecule that has in vivo efficacy, and we're working on developing it further. We also have a partnership with a large pharma company on cardiometabolic diseases, and we're working on finding our own targets in aging-related disorders. We had received a Deerfield Exceed Award for our early work in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and that's something we're continuing on at our own space in Biolabs. Our plan at the moment is we're a stage company with 4 employees, and we'll likely hire 1 more in a few months. We then expect to start our Series A raise in Q1 2025, where we'll go for up to 10 employees, mostly scientists and engineers, to build out the platform and work on our biology. And then after that, we expect to stay in New York, as there's so many more spaces available for companies that potentially outgrow the size of Biolabs. And one thing I'm really proud of is how much we're leveraging New York's expertise. We have our own company. We have a sponsored research agreement with Sloan Kettering and with Stony Brook. We have 3 partnerships that are going to start soon with NYU, with Weill Cornell, and then ASRC. And we've really done all we can to leverage everything New York offers us. And I'm really proud that I came here as a postdoc in 2012. We raised our family here. We developed the platform here. And now the company is growing and thriving in New York. And it's just great to be part of this community, be part of all the founders here and what we're doing here.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing that, and I think each of you touched on why New York. I wanted to maybe let's explore what would you like to see that isn't here. As you envision your companies growing in New York, what do you need to make sure that that growth is sustained and at a efficient, and both capital efficient and also time efficient way? Who wants to go first?
Right.
I think everybody in the startup space will say the same thing. At least they'll say, funding. I think personally, New York has all the pieces, and they just need to come together, right? If you look at Boston, they really kind of put it together for the biotech space, right? And I think a lot of that is their repeat founders, right? So you need leaders who know how to do this. It's really tough to build drugs, right? To bring them forward and push them forward. And the ecosystem in Boston is just that. They have these repeat founders that know how to do this, and they keep doing it. And so if you have a repeat founder, it's easier to raise money. I'm a first time. I mean, it's harder to bring money in. And so what I would love to see is New York kind of focus on, say, first-time founders. We were funded by New York State, so we're very, very grateful. But just those sorts of small things that really can change the game. To say, we believe in you, you have credibility, we'll back you. I think that's what I would like to see a little bit more of in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think funding is one major aspect of it. I think we've had a growth in kind of the VC sector here, right? Particularly in healthcare, some of those in services, some of those in the therapeutic space. So that's welcome to see. But I think, part of the thing that makes New York City different than other areas is our capital markets, right? And I think that when we look at ways that we can fund, and you spoke to obviously the economic development that comes from these early stage companies, and we're all hiring people and growing. And I think that things like, for instance, legislation to do things like selling net operating losses, right, that you see in other marketplaces like California and New Jersey are things that we can take full advantage of, right, and will be a natural fit for our capital markets and some of the things we're doing on the equity side. I think also a bit of organization, right? So if you look at all of these different, if you will, life science buildings we have out there and our institutions, kind of bringing that conduit together. So if you're in California, you're working with the UC system, and the investigators there are able to kind of spin out companies, get early stage funding, and drive growth. The same is true kind of in the Boston marketplace, whereas here it's a bit more parochial. And so I think as we start having more events that bring groups together and allow for this kind of natural conduit of conversations, right, it'll start allowing for the increased efficiency and velocity of growth of these early stage companies.
Yeah. Prakrit.
I think I agree with both these points. For me, I'm a first-time founder, so this is the only fundraising climate I've seen. But we really take advantage of the fact that my co-founder is currently in Boston. He was a Blavatnik fellow through HBS, and it certainly seems easier there to find more mentors, to find more funding, and we've been leveraging that. But now Shardul is moving down to New York, so we'll be fully based here. But I think the experience other industries have, like Boston and the Bay Area, is very helpful. Your advisors have just seen more things. They're just aware of different ways things have happened, and we really leverage that. And I think to Anthony's point, New York does seem very fragmented in that way. Like, we have all these ongoing partnerships with different institutions, but there's no commonality between them. It's different people, different rules they follow, different sort of deals we have with each of them. And I guess in principle, it would be much nicer if there was some sort of either umbrella or a common template that they followed. There would just be much less overhead on our part. We could go from science to execution much faster.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. One of the things that has been a theme in other conferences is talent acquisition. So is the talent that you need here, and what do you foresee as you grow? Would we need to consider that? I mean, we have a room of stakeholders that could impact what's provided.
So I can go in that case. We were fortunate, and we hired 2 really great people in the last 3 months. But I do feel like that might not always be scalable. One person graduated from Rockefeller and worked on a similar topic to what Lime is doing, so that was a perfect fit. But another person was in the Bay Area. They came back home for personal reasons. Other than that, most PhDs that I see graduating in New York move out of New York for life science careers. I see them going to Boston or the Bay Area, and then sometimes they come back. So I think we were fortunate that this is essentially an easier time to hire, and there were these unique people who were in New York for specific reasons. But it does seem that PhDs generally expect to move out of New York, and that becomes their default mindset. They look for jobs outside. They expect to get experience in Boston, and then it's a great place. They'll often stay there. So I do see New York needs to have more of a magnet effect to keep people graduating, looking at New York first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been easy to recruit to New York City, right? And so we've recruited senior scientists on the clinical side from Boston or from the Bay Area during COVID, right? Not even having a chance to meet them face to face. So New York City makes it very easy to recruit. I think the cost of living now is kind of getting a bit more equilibrated there as well. So what we lack, I think, right now currently are the experienced, if you will, executives, right, that have done biotechs or diagnostics before. And so I think part of the blessing, if there's any blessing of COVID, is that we can work remotely, right? But in terms of where we have a lack of talent right now, I think it's at that kind of later stage experienced executives that are, whether it be on the commercial side, the regulatory side, and of course on things like the CFO side of all things, right, as where we have a lack of expertise.
Yeah. So all of you mentioned the golden ticket, right? And what the golden ticket isn't funding, but it's a proxy for funding, in that you can get a resource without having to pay for it for a period of time. So one of the things that we've talked about is the importance of funding in enabling your effort. How do you feel about the development community or the community of builders actually becoming investors or providing things like golden tickets?
All for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you understand the space, right? I think one of the things with investors, you can have investors that understand what you're doing in therapeutics, or like sort of outside investors and say, oh, I want to make an impact, I want to come in. So I think for us, we like people who kind of understand the space, understand some of the stumbling blocks, right? Like, this is a hard industry, understand, the long-term projections and how long it takes. I think having people who understand the space, understand like even the physical space that you need, these are things that are really relevant, and they make the whole process smoother. Right? If you have, for instance, angel investors who don't really understand the therapeutic space, it's a long time. Science does not go like this. It's like, right? And so you really want people who are like, yeah, I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm here to support you through it. So.
Yeah, and I think it's a no-brainer, right? You're seeing it in other sectors, right, or other areas. I mean, Alexander is a good example. They're an investor in our company. They know the space very well. You got Deerfield has done their things right in Boston. You're seeing now a lot more developers are putting money into it. I mean, the fact of the matter is that life science companies are sticky, and we pay very high rates, right, for our space. So I think that once you understand the development world, if you understand your clients and how they're going to grow, then it allows for an easy kind of a way to evaluate the investment, basically.
Yeah. So since you're touching on space and the high price that startups have to pay for their space, part of that is the scalability of the companies within the space that they're acquiring when they step out of our incubators. Usually these companies have closed their Series A. There's a flow of significant capital, but there's also a need to project it out for a few years. And so what's the sweet spot in terms of size that each of you, maybe Prakrit, you're very new to this type of consideration, but so Anthony and Dori, what are some of the considerations or size that you anticipate that you're going to need?
Yeah, for me, I mean, this is my second startup. My first one was in diagnostics. We raised money during 07, 08. So unlike Prakrit, I'm used to these kind of capital markets, right, going up and down. And so for me, the important part is sustainable growth, right? And so what I look at is not taking on too much, right? And there's a delicate balance, right? Because I mean, your cost of development of that space, right, is substantially expensive, right? So if you can scale that out over more square footage, it makes sense. But you got to carry that load, right, for later periods of time. So for us, like I said, a good sweet spot is looking at kind of our 3 to 4 year projections. And I think what we're doing is looking at, like I say, that kind of 5 to 15,000 sort of square foot of space, right, is a good way to expand.
Yeah, so I think for us, we kind of are on the more early discovery, leading into development. Our growth plan has always been to kind of build out the oncology aspect of our platform and then focus also on fibrosis. I think a team of about 10 would ultimately be what we would focus on, with the idea that we would then shift some of the work to partnership back to like my friends in pharma, because I've seen what they can do with development and they do it like that. It's brilliant. And so the idea would be like we do the discovery, we get the data package together, and then we partner, whether it be at the IND stage, at the phase 1 stage, but to kind of partner it through with them. So the team doesn't have to be quite so large, right? Like a lot of what we do is through CROs. So like our in vivo studies we do through CROs. We keep, the management and sort of the biology in-house, and then we kind of outsource some of the other things. So the team doesn't have to be so big, but for us, I think around like 10,000 square feet would be great.
Okay. Wow. And so do you have an idea at this stage, or you're still?
I think we have this sense that right now we've closed our seed round, and we'll have a 5% team. So one more scientist will hire and maintain that till Q1 2025, which is when we'll start our Series A fundraising. If that goes according to plan, the expectation is to have approximately a 10 to 15% company based on how many of our targets from our platform are worth us proceeding further with. And then it really comes down to, are we going to be a clinical stage company or not for the Series B?
Yeah, and the reason I bring this up, because what I see being provided in the market are, 40, 30, 25,000 square feet. And what you're telling me, and I actually see this with some of the other companies, not just at our incubator, is that the requirement isn't quite as extensive. And that's because of, is it because of the CROs, or is it because of other aspects of the platforms you're developing?
I think it's the way it's going, right? I think you don't have to build everything internally. You can outsource, because there's a lot of expertise that's been developed, and there's some really skilled people working in CROs that you can leverage without actually setting up an entire vivarium, getting a mouse facility manager, running those studies. Some of the models we do are very standard, so they're easy and they can be executed without internally building. And I think that's just sort of the new way of getting things done very quickly.
Okay.
And I think it's just access to capital. Frankly, obviously, where we're currently located is the former headquarters of ImClone, basically, right? So my vision is we're going to have a big biotech here in the city, right? It'll be Kodikaz will be one of them, and as we raise more capital, we'll take on more space. But it's all about kind of, again, sustainability and what you have available.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got 40 shots on creating the next big ImClone. Yeah, so we are in the old ImClone space, and so we're the inheritor of great history. And so we have about 2.5 minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to add, or we can open it up to questions? Any questions? Okay. That's great. Well, thank you.
Okay, so I think you can get a sense of the diversity of companies that are coming up through the system. It's very exciting, because I think it's going to make the city stronger as a result.